And now we are going to have a controller demo to really bed in all of this information that we've taken in the previous slides. My name is Eugene Breen. I am a customer success specialist with Cisco AppDynamics. Most of this part is going to be spent within a demo controller. So I am going to move over to our demo controller. For any first-time users of AppDynamics, you might access your controller for the first time, either CSAS or on-prem, and this is what you will be presented with. It will show you the various different areas of AppDynamics. If we go back to the slides which we covered earlier, they are based on the areas of AppDynamics: end user monitoring, application performance monitoring, database and infrastructure. You will see all of these represented within this screen here, depending on your role-based access control. Also, you will see all of these areas at the top of your window. You will see applications. This is APM, user experience, EUM, databases, and servers. And take some time to explore and look in the other areas that you have available within AppDynamics. For this demo, we're going to spend most of the time within APM, that's applications. So I'm going to load the applications. These are the business applications available to me to view within this demo controller. You can have options to set other views, which might be a bit easier depending on how many business applications you're looking after. The view I prefer is to select Business Transaction Health and Node Health. Now we're able to get a good representation of the health across our business application. The business application I'm using as part of this demo is AD e-commerce. This is just a simple 24/7 based application with plenty of throughput to give good examples. Once I load e-commerce or AD e-commerce, the first thing where many people's eyes will gravitate towards is the flow map. This is the AppDynamics application flow map. And this shows a number of the entities that are available to you within your business application. Everything you see within this window or subsequent areas of AppDynamics will contain throughput from whatever time you have selected up here. So the period of time we have now is the last 15 minutes. If I push this out to 30 minutes, the data within this view is going to change, update, and reflect the last 30 minutes of throughput. Now, the previous slides that we covered, they also mentioned a number of important entities that we really want to bed in here in terms of getting started with AppDynamics. Let's start with Node. So if we look at the flow map here, you will see all of these circles here, okay? These larger circles are tiers, but within that, you can see 42 nodes. You also see Java. So what that is telling me is there are 42 instances of a Java-based application in here, and it's grouped into a tier called e-commerce services. So again, if we go back to the text that's covering a node, it's an individual runtime in the application environment. It could be an individual application server or JVM in this example, as is Java, okay? Again, it's grouped within a tier. So this tier e-commerce services contains 42 nodes. What are other things that we see within this view? Well, let's take a look here. These guys, these are called backends. You might refer to them as third-party vendor APIs. You might refer to them as database backend. Here it's being represented as a HTTP call. This means that AppDynamics is able to capture that there is a call out to a area within the application or outside of the application that is not being instrumented by an AppDynamics agent. And it gives us various metrics like the number of calls, the performance of those calls per minute, and if there's any errors attributed to it. Here is the text for the backend piece. So again, a component that is not instrumented by an AppDynamics app. An example of this, what you can think of, is often in applications when you are going through, for example, a credit check, right? If you're applying for a credit card, you're going to link out to maybe Experian or some other similar service that's going to provide a credit check. That's a pretty important area of a credit card application. So they're obviously not going to be instrumented by AppDynamics, and we want to understand the health of it because it's fundamental. It is involved in the request that an end user is making. So it's important that we understand the performance of these areas that are included and involved in an end user request, but is not instrumented by AppDynamics. You can also see a lot of these backends here at the left within database calls and with remote services. They're listed out in separate areas here. These larger circles here, as we mentioned, these are tiers, so grouping of nodes. What we also see here, and what you've probably looked at already, are the differences between the lines. So here you can see there are dotted lines, and here there are solid lines. The dotted lines means that it is an asynchronous request. I'm just highlighting it with my mouse now. So that's like fire and forget, okay? It's not expecting a response. These solid lines, these are synchronous requests, expecting a response. You'll also see a number of things are color-coded in here. And these are basically letting us know that there is something anomalous going on within the context of this tier. If we click on it, a tier, it will let us know the health of the nodes. So the individual runtimes or application servers, it's saying that there's 2 critical nodes in here and 2 are in warning state. The other are okay. Before we get too deep into a troubleshoot, we're just going to cover some pretty important areas of how we view everything within this window. So if we select baseline and select daily trend, now just notice and keep an eye on the color of those lines that we just discussed. You'll see they updated in color. They updated from blue to green. And that means that they are being graded against their baseline, how we expect it to perform. For every metric that AppDynamics takes into the AppDynamics controller, it is building a baseline of how we expect it to perform within the context of a number of metrics. Number of calls per minute, response times, a number of errors associated with it are examples. And anything outside of that appears anomalous. So if there's a very slow call, within those thresholds or an error, you will see these lines will update their color. If it's within the threshold of critical, it'll go red. If it's warning, it'll turn yellow. So it points you in the right direction, especially during a troubleshoot. It can be pretty important. This larger circle here, this is actually AppDynamics telling us that this business application, AD e-commerce, the one that we're within, is sending a request to another business application within the same controller. At the right-hand side, you are going to see the events pane. This is going to let us know any events that are occurring at this current point in time in the last 15 minutes. Again, if you update it, push it out to 30 minutes, it might change. This is giving us health rules, okay? It's letting us know that health rules have been defined within this business application, and some of the conditions within those health rules have evaluated to let us know there's a problem with business transaction health or node health. This means that your application SMEs can be in control of things that you want to capture and you want to highlight. You have further options also of sending these health rules in the form of emails or integrating with ITSM. Here, business transaction health we covered business transactions within this slide. Business transactions in APM for AppDynamics is really, really important to get right. Once you get your business transactions right, monitoring the performance of your application will become a lot easier. And the way you define and set up your business transactions is you link it to key actions or processes being executed by the application. So if I'm monitoring my application here, I'm looking at business transaction health, and it's already telling me that some important actions that are being executed on the application are in trouble. Okay, I have 4 critical and 1 warning. Going down to node health, when we talk about the infrastructure that maybe the application is sitting upon, or the application itself is letting us know that there could be problems at that level. And this is the server. This is on the actual infrastructure itself, the servers within this business application. Okay. Further down, our scorecard. Business transactions, again, mentioned as very, very important to understanding the performance of your application. So what the scorecard does is it lays out in terms of percentages the success of your business transactions. So it's letting us know that of all of the business transactions that were executed within the last 30 minutes, 91.3% of those were normal. It gives you the actual number also. This amount was slow, very slow, stalled, and with errors. It also lets you know further down the amount of exceptions or errors that have occurred within your business application for the last 30 minutes. These two graphs, load and response time. Load is telling us the calls per minute. This is the actual throughput that's been coming through for the application. The dotted line is our baseline. The response time is letting us know the performance of these calls for the last 30 minutes. Often, if you're having any problems with performance in terms of response time, you will see various different spikes here occurring. One other thing we're pointing out is the baseline. Not every baseline will suit your application. This application is an e-commerce based application. It's constant throughput 24/7. For that, you would use a daily trend baseline. Each day is going to be like the next. However, some applications might be weekly based, which means it could be constant throughput from Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. For that, you would have a weekly based baseline. And finally, there's also a monthly based baseline, and that would be more tailored to maybe batch processing, or if there's a banking application whereby a batch process is kicking off once per month, then you're going to have a high spiking day. So it's worth looking into baselines to ensure it matches your application in the right manner. The next thing I want to go through and show you is on the left, just a representation of the tiers and nodes, right? We covered tiers and nodes earlier. This is another way in which you can view your tiers and nodes. You can view it this way in the tree view or just in a table view. Here are the various different tiers and nodes. So this is a tier, and you can see here, this is its collection of nodes, right? So that's another way in which you can view that. The next thing we are going to show and highlight is a quick troubleshoot, which shows you the importance of correlating your user experience, databases, APM, and servers. So for this example, I'm just going to go to user experience, which is the highest level in which we can understand user performance from either a browser level or a mobile level. You also have synthetics in here too, and API monitoring, but these would be primarily our main two. I'm going to go into the browser side application for browser apps. And as you can see, it's loading its own dashboard here. I'm going to go into the individual pages and AJAX requests. And I want to take a look at some of the pages here that maybe I can narrow in on. The page I usually use for my demos is checkout. So this is our checkout action here. And I'm going to go to browser snapshots. Before going to browser snapshots, just take a look at some of the data that we capture for the browser side. Again, there's a lot going to be going on in React and Angular single page applications, which we can monitor the performance of. Browser snapshots. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so in browser snapshots, I want to find something that is correlated with my backend. For that, I'm going to select server side snapshot exists. Let's see what we have for the last 2 hours. And I want to select something for an end user response time. So the scenario is that from a browser perspective, someone is reporting that one of the pages is taking a long time to load. People are reporting issues. Now we've narrowed in on a checkout action being performed within the browser level. What we've done is selected server snapshot. So I'm making sure that we can see the full flow. Also, this guy here has resource timing. And this is the end user response time. This is what we're most concerned about. How long it's taking for this individual action to execute. Let's double click on it and it brings us into a snapshot. Now, AppDynamics will, for various areas, capture something called a snapshot, which is based around a baseline and thresholds. When something which is in anomalous behavior occurs, right? If it's exceeding a threshold, then AppDynamics will basically capture additional data to help you with your root cause analysis or isolation of an issue. It happened for this specific action, also checkout. So just looking at what we have here, real user snapshot, we're just looking at various different areas here of what's going on. One area I'm concerned with here is the server time, which is the time for all the server side business actions, right, to complete on the page, okay? And for calling down to the actual server itself. It's saying that of this amount of time, that the server time is taking this amount, okay? Now, 8 p.m. where we just were, 8 p.m., a completely different area within AppDynamics. AppDynamics is letting us know that there is a business transaction here that's correlated to, and also a snapshot. So it means that the 8 p.m. where we were, okay, this is our 8 p.m. These are our business transactions. You can see this is the checkout business transaction. AppDynamics from the browser level is telling us, hey, further downstream, there's a business transaction that I'm correlated to, and it looks like it's having problems. So maybe you should dive into the business transaction. So that's what I do. I double click on this, and it brings me into a business transaction snapshot. Now check this out. This is showing us the whole flow. This is showing us, this is where we start, version of Firefox. And then, like the business transactions that we've been told about, a business transaction is a end-to-end view of a user-initiated request. That's what it's showing us here. And what we look at here then, there's various different ways we can do it. On the left, we'll get quick pointers where the issues might be. But also within the actual view itself, okay, is letting us know that 9.1 seconds of the 10 seconds it takes to execute this whole transaction is being spent between here and here. Also is letting us know here with the red that the issue is most likely occurring down in the database level. So we can drill down into our database. Okay, if we click on this, it's going to load all of the queries that will be occurring at this point. We have a issue with my demo environment. Okay. Here we go. Okay, this is loading the queries that is executed. So if I double click on one of these queries, it brings me straight down into my database view. It's supposed to bring me straight down into my database view. Let's double click on this guy. Okay, this brings me into my database, right? So this gives me the query that was executed, and it gives me a lot of data, which I can take and bring to the DBA or the developer to ask them, can you let me know what the problem is with this? So now you are coming to the table with a bit of fruitful information. You have the query ID, and you have the linked business transaction. You have the domain that it's coming from, session ID, and now you can bring this to the table and say, okay, it looks like there's a high execution time. It's giving me problems here. It's clearly identifying that the problem is between this tier and this database. Okay. Now, what we will do is pause for questions.